Hi, you're okay.
Good afternoon. For today, we're going to be starting a new series, starting every day exploring another one of the commandments or another concept in Judaism as we have been continuing, but looking at it from another angle into the whys and hows, more of the whys to certain mitzvot and certain things that we do and practices that we have in Judaism, as we will still have our Thursday Ethics of Our Fathers Friday portion of the week, but a little more consistent on the whys of Judaism as we started until now. Today we're going to talk about the general concept of asking why in Judaism. Should we ask why? Can we ask questions? Does Judaism allow for questions? So one would say at first, if Judaism is something about a belief system, do they say, as to the skeptic there are no answers, to the believer there are no questions? Should one ask questions as why in Judaism? Does the word why even exist in Judaism? Don't we just do the commandments because God told us to do so? Is there even a rationale for any of the commandments? Should we even look to find a rationale for the commandments? And over here, Maimonides explains to us and tells us that everything in Judaism has a reason. Even King Solomon, the smartest of all people, looked to understand and appreciate the reasons of Judaism. But what does it mean to look for a reason in Judaism? So Maimonides quantifies it and puts three different categories of laws. There's something called edus, mitzvot that we do merely because that is a testimony to something that occurred to a previous event. For example, Shabbat is considered edus, is an event that happened. God created the world in 6 days, and therefore we rested on the seventh, therefore we celebrate the Shabbos. Passover is a testimony to an event that happened. The Jewish people came out of Egypt, and therefore we celebrate Passover. Shavuos, and so too all the holidays. Then there's a type of law which is called mishpatim, obvious laws. Laws of ethics, laws of morals, laws of values, laws that the world should be able to continue. In the terminology of the Medrash, that even if, God forbid, God hasn't given to the Torah, we would have to learn these laws from a creature, from an ant, or whatever it may be, that we should be able to know these laws. These laws are like laws of killing, not to kill, not to steal, have ethics in business, and so on. These are called mishpatim, seemingly obvious laws. But then we come to a level of laws which are called chukim. Chukim are laws which are statutes. By definition, there is no rationale behind them. The only reason for these laws is to show that we as the Jewish people are different from all nations of the world. In fact, the word that the Torah uses, chuka chakakti, the laws I've engraved within you, they become integrated within the individual, and we don't have any right to think and why and how. For example, the laws of purity and impurity. The laws of purity and impurity are irrational. We cannot give a logical explanation why the mikveh, which is a body of water, would make the person pure. Why doesn't the mikveh itself become impure? Why, by touching one thing, do you become impure? Why, by touching something else, do you become pure? The same ideas with the laws of kosher. The laws of kosher are an irrational type of mitzvah. There is no logic behind why something, a pork, is not kosher while beef is kosher. Yes, today many people start giving rationales afterwards, but the actual reasoning. There is no actual rationale for the laws of kosher. And so on many other mitzvot that we have, for example, mixing wool and linen and things of that nature. Those are laws which are beyond rationale. Now, each one of these laws have a separate reason of why God gave us these laws, and our relationship to God in these laws are different as well. So, for example, when we do a law which is a testimony to the Jewish people, for example, the laws of Passover, the laws of Shabbat, those laws are absolutely only given to Jewish people, to the extent that if a non-Jew was to observe them, a non-Jew is not even allowed to observe them. A non-Jew is not allowed to observe Shabbat. A non-Jew is not allowed to observe Passover. There's a story that's told in the time of the temple where there was a non-Jewish fellow who tried to outsmart the sages and participate of the Paschal offering. So Rabbi Yehuda told this fellow, why don't you go and ask for the tail? And he went and he asked for the tail, and the Kohanim realized that this guy, the tail nobody ate, that gets burnt on the altar, but he didn't know it. And everybody knows that. When he asked for it right away, they knew that he was not Jewish, and they were able to not give him part of the Paschal offering. To the extent when we talk about the destruction of the temple, there was a non-Jewish emperor who sent a sacrifice, and there was a question if they were allowed to take the sacrifice. The reason why they didn't end up taking it was because it had a blemish. There are certain laws which are specific for Jewish people. God chose the Jewish people, gave them specific laws for different events that happened to the Jewish people specifically, like Passover, Shavuos, Sukkot, and so on. Then the laws which come about, no rationale, they're super rationale. The concept of the laws of which are super rationale is again that God tells the Jewish people, this is what singles you out from everybody else. The very fact that God gave us the laws of kosher, God finishes the laws of kosher by saying, I am God who took you out of Egypt, therefore I gave you these laws. The laws of purity and impurity, again, I am God who took you out of Egypt, therefore I've given you specifically these laws. The super rational laws are because we have a super rational behavior relationship with God, and the way we cultivate that relationship is by keeping those laws. So God says, I want to have a super rational relationship with you, the Jewish people. Therefore, you have to keep a super rational relationship by observing these type of laws. Then we come to the laws of values of mishpatim. That is for everybody to keep. Jews, non-Jews, to have a civilized world, we need to keep those laws. In fact, there are 7 Noachide laws, and most of them, and all of them are in fact mishpatim besides idolatry. The same ideas as well, that the 7 Noachide laws have branches of them. For example, honor your father and mother. Though it's not technically one of the 7 Noachide laws, it is an extension of that, of creating a proper ethical world, and therefore a non-Jew as well is obligated in doing those things. So when we look around in general in most of these ideas, in all of these comments, in the different sections of the laws, we have 3 levels of laws. In some of them we are told to ask why, and some of them we have to accept because they're super rational. But the concept of why in Judaism exists, not only exists, but to a certain extent, we as humans should always look to understand and appreciate and get to the bottom of something to the best of our ability. At the same time, we have to know that this is our limit, that we are human, scope of understanding is limited, and therefore this is an infinite wisdom that God has given us, so therefore we try our best to understand it. It is interesting to note that there are 2 types of mitzvot. There are mitzvot which the Torah tells us, yes, you could go deeper and understand it, but at the same time realize there's a level that your understanding is going to get you. There's a certain level that you can appreciate of that understanding. And even King Solomon says, this is beyond my scope of understanding as well. So that helps us integrate a better relationship. But why is it important? Why can't we just accept it and believe it? God told us to do it, and boom, follow all the commandments. Why do I have to even understand why? So there's 2 reasons. One reason is because if a person doesn't, a simplistic reason, if you don't know the reason for it, eventually it's going to become dry and you're not going to be doing it. We'll say, yeah, I don't care what's the reason, why do I have to do it? Like you can see what's going on during this pandemic. People that were not explained, or people said, oh, what's it going to do? Nobody knew what was going on. And all of a sudden they become lax in following the rules. But once you explain to people what this can do, how it can do it, people take things more seriously. Same idea is also with Judaism. If we understand the whys, we can have a better appreciation and feeling for what we're doing. But even more so, when we talk about the whys, The whys gives us an enthusiasm, makes us own it. When you understand something and you have a feeling for it, you become part of it. It's not somebody else's idea, but it becomes your idea. As Jewish people, we are told that we have to do the mitzvot in order to transform the world and make it a holy place. The actual purpose of why God gave us the commandments was, as the first Chabad Rebbe writes in the Tanya, to make this world a sanctuary for God, to fuse the physical and the spiritual, to take the physical world and make it a spiritual haven for God. The only way we can do that is by, number one, starting by making our brain, our intellect, spiritual as well. So when I, as a physical person, materialistic person, understand a spiritual concept, not only as an idea that's far-fetched, but something which is pragmatic, realistic, and practical and applicable to me today, I first of all transform myself into a conduit of bringing God's message to the world. But even more so, once I have that message and I understand that message, I'm fully embraced in it. I fully take it to the next step where I can understand and appreciate it and quantify it and qualify it and apply it to its proper application. So the why is so important. It's not just a blind belief, but it's an enthusiastic approach to everything Jewish. So therefore, in Judaism, we don't shy away from the why. In Judaism, we embrace the questions. As we know, as it tells us in Ethics of Our Fathers, lo yabaishon lamed, one who's embarrassed doesn't learn, lo yakapton melamed, and one who's too strict and doesn't want to answer cannot be a teacher. We have to be able to take every single part of the Torah and understand it to the best of our ability. Once we are able to understand it and appreciate it, then we can take it even a step further, analyze it, discuss it. And when we understand the whys, when we can also find its contemporary application. Because as you know, everything is in the Torah. We have to find a way where we can put it. And over here, we're telling us, once we understand the whys, we can then apply it to the different places and compare case-to-case scenarios, understanding the different situations and why God has given us certain commandments in different places. For this reason, we are going to take a different mitzvah every single day, or a different concept. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to post which one we want to discuss another day. And we're going to continue to explore the whys of the different commandments. When we talk about the whys, there's a cute story that's told. Once the previous Rebbe was summoned to the office of the KGB for interrogation. And they challenged him to prove the existence of God. And he says, you know, just the same way I can't explain to you the digestive system to someone who has never experienced digestion or indigestion for that matter, you can't explain God to someone who has never experienced him. What was the previous Rebbe telling the communists here? You so defy godliness, how do you want me to tell you what God is? Step number one to understanding the whys of Judaism is accepting and believing the precepts of Judaism, the concepts of Judaism, to believe that it's godly ordained. So we have the belief system. Once we have the belief system that everything's from God, then we can start analyzing and taking it apart and making sense of it. So once we've set down the ground rules, so to speak, to tell us what Judaism is all about, why we understand it, how we understand it, now tomorrow we will go into discussing different concepts and ideas in Judaism. And tomorrow's question, just to give you a little bit of a sneak preview, will be, why are there no miracles today of biblical proportion? Tune in tomorrow, lunch break with the Rabbi at 1 p.m., and we'll continue in exploring the whys and hows of Judaism. God bless you and have a wonderful day.